Hey, good evening. It's December 18th. This is the 18th day of the 25 days of Christmas. And as the sun sets and we see the brilliance of God's light, God's creation, I want to focus on Jesus and the light that he is, and the wonder that he is, and the glory that he is. John's Gospel, the first chapter, is not often used in reference to quote-unquote Christmas, but it's very much the story of the incarnate Christ. Notice what verse 14 says here. After this summation that John has given, verse 14 begins this statement. The Word became flesh and lived for a while among us. That's the incarnation. Jesus, the Word, the incarnate Word, became flesh and lived for a while among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. This setting sun behind me, the tree that's illuminated back there, the brilliance of the landscape, it doesn't even begin to compare with the glory of Christ and his radiance. But it gives us a picture. This visual reminder, when we have sunsets like this and we can see the glory fading, it'll be dark here in just a couple of minutes. This is also probably the most important part of what we call the Christmas story. So on this 18th day of Christmas, of the 25 days, notice what John says. The Word, that's Jesus, identified by that beginning of the chapter, became flesh and lived for a while among us. We have seen his glory. Glory in this sense is the way that Jesus honored his Father, the way that Jesus added to the reputation of his Father, the way that Jesus made God significant. Not that God needs to be significant by us, but Jesus, by the way he lived, showed that God was significant, worthy of our full honor. We're kind of like this broken down fence back here. But when the glory of God consumes us, when it overtakes us, when I'm not drawn in by the pettiness of the world around me, actually it's my own pettiness that's the problem. Because I want to fight back, I want to lash back, I want to feel sorry for myself. And what John is telling us right here, right now, is that Jesus became flesh. He lived with us for a little while, and we have seen his glory. The glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. You and I, of course, can never get to that point. I can never get to that point where someone might describe me as being full of grace and truth. But I can live for that. You can live for that. When there's a challenge, when someone is unkind, when you have the opportunity to represent yourself or to represent Jesus, which will it be? Whose glory will you and I represent? Who will I choose to represent? Will I represent the wonder of Christ? The mercy and truth, the grace and truth that came from his Father and given to me? No, I'll never do it perfectly. But if my goal, if my desire is to live a life of mercy and grace, be a person who is noted about being graceful, about showing the grace of God, about committed to the truth, not in some haughty, nasty, angry way, but in a way that represents the wonder and honor and glory and majesty of Christ. So on this 18th day, as we head into the final week, and we're going to see we're going to see the rest of the word pictures of Christ. They're just mind-blowing. At least they are to me. I pray they will be to you. Listen to this idea of Christmas again. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us and lived among us. This is what the whole business of celebration of the Incarnation and Christmas time is all about. It's not just about good feelings, not just about presents, not just about trying to make up for our problems, but this wonderful, mind-blowing opportunity to live for the glory of Christ, to live for the glory of His Father. The Word became flesh and lived among us for a while. We have seen His glory, the glory of the one and only Son, Jesus, the unique Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. May God take me. I pray He will take you and cause us to be people who see glory in terms of living a life of grace and truth. There is no better way to describe the story of the Incarnation, the story of Christ, than people who are caught up and live a life full of grace and truth. May we be that people. May God cause us to do that. Thank you so much for being here with me on day 18. And Lord willing, we'll see you tomorrow. Live a life that is marked by grace and truth. It's what Jesus gave us life for. It's why He died. It's why He came. We'll see you tomorrow. Great day. Bye-bye.